The town was quiet that evening, but not peaceful. The streets were almost empty, the air heavy with dust and smoke from the factories at the edge of the colony. People kept their heads low, moving fast, not stopping to talk. Something was wrong, and everyone knew it. Among them walked a stranger. He was tall, with a worn jacket and boots that carried the dirt of many worlds. No one knew his real name. Some said he had been a soldier once, others believed he was just a drifter who fixed broken ships. Whatever the truth, he was a man who kept to himself. He asked no questions, and no one asked him any. That night he passed by an alley near the market. A faint sound stopped him. At first he thought it was a cat or a machine whining, but then he heard it again, soft, trembling voices. Children. He turned his head slowly, careful not to draw attention. In the shadows, behind a pile of broken crates, he saw them. 3 small figures huddled together. Their eyes glowed faintly in the dark. Not human eyes, but large and silver. Their skin was pale blue, thin like paper. Alien children, the stranger frowned. Everyone in the colony had heard rumors. Some spoke of strange kids seen near the mines. Others claimed it was just tricks of the light. But here they were, real and alive, hiding in the dirt. One of them whispered something in a language he did not understand. The other pressed a finger to its lips, warning silence. They were scared, terrified. The man took a step closer. The children flinched, pulling back into the shadows like frightened animals. His voice came out low, calm. "I'm not here to hurt you." They did not answer. He looked around the street. Empty now. But for how long? If the wrong people saw these kids, it would not end well. He crouched, keeping his distance. "You're hungry," he said. "Aren't you?" The smallest one's eyes flicked to him, then to the piece of bread he pulled from his pocket. Slowly, carefully, he placed it on the ground and slid it forward. The kids did not move at first. But after a long silence, one reached out with trembling hands and grabbed the bread, biting into it with desperate speed. The stranger sighed. He had seen hungry children before, but never like this. They looked lost, broken, far away from home. From the tavern across the street, laughter rang out. A group of miners came stumbling, drunk and loud. The stranger stepped back quickly, blocking the view of the alley with his body. He lowered his voice to the children. "Stay quiet." The men passed, shouting about their winnings from the gambling tables. One of them caught sight of the stranger standing near the alley. "What are you doing there, fool?" The man barked. The stranger shrugged. "Nothing." The miners laughed, shaking their heads. "Always talking to shadows, aren't you? Don't waste your time on rats." Then they staggered away. When they were gone, the stranger turned back. The children's faces showed fear and something else. Hope. He asked softly, "Why are you here?" "Where are your people?" They looked at one another. The eldest one, maybe no older than 10 in human years, finally whispered in broken words, "Hunted." The stranger's eyes narrowed. "Who hunts you?" Before the child could answer, a sharp sound cut through the night. A distant howl, not human, rising from the far side of the colony. The children froze. One grabbed the stranger's sleeve with surprising strength. "They come," the child whispered. The stranger glanced down the street. No one else seemed to notice, but he knew the kids were not lying. Something was out there. Something dangerous. He stood, his hand brushing the worn handle of the blade at his side. For a moment he hesitated. He could walk away. They were not his problem. No one would blame him. But then he looked into their silver eyes. He saw fear, yes, but also trust. Trust in him, a stranger they had just met. He sighed heavily. "All right," he muttered. "I'll help you. For now." The children clung closer as if his words were a shield. The night air grew colder, the shadows deeper. From far away, the howl came again, closer this time. The stranger knew one thing. The colony was no longer safe. For him, for the children, maybe for anyone. And yet in that moment he made a choice that others would soon call foolish, a choice that would change everything. The stranger led the children through narrow back streets, avoiding the main roads where patrols walked. The night was colder now, and the sound of that strange howl still echoed from time to time. Each time it came, the alien kids shivered and pressed closer to him. He stopped near an old warehouse, its roof half broken and its doors hanging loose. Few people came here anymore. It was the perfect place to hide, at least for a little while. He pushed the door open and motioned them inside. The children moved carefully, their silver eyes glowing faintly in the dark. Once inside, they huddled together, whispering in their own language. The stranger lit a small lamp, not too bright, just enough to push away the shadows. "Sit," he said quietly. "You're safe for now." They obeyed, though their eyes still darted around as if expecting danger to burst through the walls at any second. The stranger sat opposite them, watching closely. "Tell me," he said, "why are you being hunted?" For a long time, no one spoke. The youngest one clutched the elder's hand tightly. The elder child finally looked up, his voice trembling but strong enough to carry words. "We carry a secret," the child said in broken human tongue. The stranger's brow furrowed. "What kind of secret?" The child hesitated, then whispered, "A message." "A warning." The stranger leaned closer. "A warning for who?" The child's silver eyes filled with fear. "For all. For every world." The man leaned back slowly, trying to understand. He had heard many strange stories while drifting from one planet to another. But nothing like this. Children carrying a warning? What could they possibly know? The middle child, smaller but sharp-eyed, spoke next. "We run because hunters want silence. They not want truth." "Truth about what?" the stranger pressed. The eldest shook his head quickly, lowering his voice. "Too dangerous. If we speak, they find us. Even walls have ears." The stranger studied them. He could see the terror in their eyes. Whatever they carried, it was not a simple secret. It was something powerful, something worth killing children over. He sighed, rubbing his forehead. "You're just kids. Why would anyone chase you across a colony?" The youngest, barely able to form human words, whispered softly. "Because we remember." That word struck him like a blade. Remember? He looked at their fragile faces and wondered, what could children remember that adults feared so much? Before he could ask more, the sound of boots outside made him freeze. Heavy, organized, not like the drunk miners from before. Someone was searching the streets. The stranger put out the lamp quickly. "Quiet," he whispered. The children curled against each other, trembling. The footsteps stopped right outside the warehouse. The stranger's hand went to his blade. He held his breath. For a long, tense moment, only silence. Then the footsteps moved on, fading into the night. The stranger waited until the sound was gone before lighting the lamp again. The children's eyes were wide with fear. He spoke softly but firmly. "If you stay here, they will find you. If you want to live, you must trust me. Tell me everything." The eldest child shook his head. "Not yet, too soon." "We tell when safe." The man clenched his jaw. He hated secrets, especially deadly ones, but he could see they were on the edge of breaking. Pushing harder might only make them shut down. Instead, he pulled a flask of water from his pack and set it down. "Drink, rest, I'll keep watch." They hesitated, then drank greedily. Their hands shook from fear and hunger, but slowly their breathing calmed. Within minutes, the youngest one had curled up and fallen asleep. The stranger sat by the broken doorway, watching the night outside. His mind was heavy. He had taken in runaways before, human or not, but this was different. These kids were not only hiding, they were running from something much larger. The middle child, still awake, spoke softly. "Why you help us?" Others laugh. "Others call you fool." The man gave a small, bitter smile. "Maybe I am a fool, but I don't like watching kids die. That's reason enough." The child tilted his head as if studying him. "Fools sometimes are the only ones brave." The words stayed with him long after the child closed his eyes. He sat in silence, listening to the distant night sounds of the colony. For the first time, he wondered if his choice to help them was more than kindness. Maybe it was fate, but fate was cruel. Because outside, in the deeper shadows beyond the warehouse, two pairs of glowing red eyes were watching. Silent, patient, waiting for their chance. The stranger did not see them. Not yet. The warehouse was silent except for the soft breathing of the alien children. The stranger sat by the door, his blade across his knees, eyes half closed but always alert. He had lived too long in rough worlds to ever sleep deeply. Then it came, a sound faint but sharp, the crunch of gravel under a heavy boot. He tensed immediately. His hand tightened around the hilt of his blade. Slowly, he turned his head. Through the cracks in the broken wall, he saw movement in the shadows. Not one figure, several. They moved with quiet precision, not like drunks or wanderers. These were hunters, professional. The stranger's jaw clenched. He rose silently, stepping between the door and the sleeping children. One of the kids stirred, silver eyes fluttering open. The eldest saw his stance and froze. He whispered only one word. Them. The stranger pressed a finger to his lips, signaling silence. Then the door creaked. A long shadow stretched inside. The first hunter entered, tall and armored in dark plating that reflected no light. A strange mask covered his face, red eyes glowing faintly through the visor. Behind him, two more figures slipped in, holding weapons shaped like curved rifles. The alien children whimpered softly, but the stranger's voice was low and steady. "Stay behind me." The lead hunter scanned the room and hissed. His voice was metallic, distorted.
"Give us the children, human."
"Walk away now and you live." The stranger didn't move. His hand rested on his blade. His voice was calm, almost bored. "I don't take orders from cowards hiding behind masks." The second hunter stepped forward, weapon raised. "Last chance." The stranger smiled faintly. "I already gave you mine." With one swift motion, he kicked over the lamp. The warehouse plunged into darkness. Chaos followed. A sharp crack of energy fire lit the room in flashes. The stranger rolled to the side, drawing his blade with a metallic whisper. The first hunter swung his rifle, but the stranger moved fast, slicing through the barrel before the weapon could fire again. Sparks rained across the floor. The children screamed and ducked behind the crates. The second hunter charged, but the stranger grabbed a broken pipe from the ground and threw it with perfect aim. It struck the hunter's mask, shattering the red lens. The man howled, blinded. The third raised his rifle, but the stranger lunged forward, closing the distance before the shot could fire. His blade found the joint in the armor, sliding between plates. The hunter collapsed, weapon clattering to the ground. The eldest child shouted, "Behind you!" The leader swung his heavy fist, striking the stranger across the ribs. Pain shot through his side, but he didn't fall. He twisted, slashing upward, sparks flying as steel met armor. The leader staggered but did not fall. His mask hissed, releasing a strange gas. His voice was colder now. "Foolish man, you cannot protect them. You don't even know what they are." The stranger spat blood, glaring back. "Don't need to know. I just know you're not taking them." The leader raised his arm. A small device on his wrist lit up, projecting a red beacon into the sky outside. A signal. A call. The stranger's eyes widened. "Reinforcements. Run," he barked to the children. The kids scrambled from their hiding place, racing toward the back of the warehouse. The stranger slashed again, driving the leader back, then grabbed the fallen rifle from the ground. He fired blindly, the weapon kicking hard, bolts of red energy tearing holes through the walls. The hunters pulled back, regrouping near the door. One dragged the wounded away while the leader stood tall, his mask glowing brighter. He pointed at the stranger. "You have chosen death." The stranger aimed the stolen rifle, chest heaving. "Not today." He fired a blast that shattered the doorway, buying precious seconds. Then he turned and ran, herding the children out into the cold night. The colony streets were empty, shadows stretching long under the moons. The children panted, their small legs struggling to keep up. The stranger slowed only enough to scoop the smallest one into his arms. Behind them, alarms began to wail. The hunters had called for backup. The middle child gasped between breaths. "They will not stop. They want us silenced." The stranger glanced down. "Then you'd better tell me why before we both end up dead." The eldest shook his head, fear in his voice. "Not yet. We need safe place. Then truth." The man cursed under his breath but kept running. He knew the colony well enough. There was an old drainage tunnel beyond the eastern wall, forgotten by most. It would hide them for now, but as they neared the edge of the colony, a terrible sound filled the night. Engines. The stranger froze. Overhead, sleek ships streaked across the sky, dark and fast, their lights scanning the streets below. The hunters had brought more than reinforcements. They had brought war machines. The children gasped in terror, clinging to him. The youngest whispered, "They will burn this place, just to stop us." The stranger's heart pounded. He had thought this was just a chase. But no, this was something much bigger. Something worth destroying an entire colony for. He tightened his grip on the rifle, his jaw set. Then we'll just have to survive long enough to make sure they don't. The ships roared overhead, beams of red light sweeping closer, and in that moment, the stranger knew the first attack was only the beginning. The tunnel was damp and cold, water dripping from cracked stone above. The stranger moved carefully, carrying the smallest child in his arms while the other two followed close behind. Their silver eyes glowed faintly, the only light in the darkness. Behind them, the sounds of engines and alarms faded into the distance. For now, they were hidden. For now, they could breathe. The stranger set the youngest child down and leaned against the wall, his chest rising and falling hard. He had fought before, run before, but never like this. These hunters, they were not simple mercenaries. They were soldiers. Soldiers who would not stop. He turned to the children. Enough running. You said you carry a secret. If I don't know what it is, I can't keep you alive. Tell me now. The eldest child hesitated, glancing at the others. His voice trembled. You will not believe. The man's voice grew sharper. Try me. The child took a deep breath, silver eyes fixed on him. We come from Far Star, from place humans call silent space. Long ago, war burned our world. Not by enemy outside, but by our own, the stranger frowned. What does that have to do with this colony? The child's voice grew lower, urgent. Our people made a weapon that eats suns. The word struck him like ice. He had heard whispers of such things, rumors told in dark bars across the galaxy. A device powerful enough to kill not just soldiers but whole systems. A weapon that could starve worlds of light and life. The child continued. That weapon was lost, buried in time. But we remember. We carry memory inside. The middle child touched his temple. Memory seed. Given by elders. Hidden in us. The stranger's eyes narrowed. So you're saying your people put knowledge of a superweapon inside your heads? The eldest nodded slowly. Yes, and hunters. They want it. They want silence so no one else can know. They fear we will speak. The man rubbed his temples, trying to process. Children carrying memories of a weapon that could wipe out stars. No wonder they were hunted. No wonder whole squads had been sent after them. And what do you plan to do with it? He asked. The eldest's voice shook. Not destroy. Not use, only warn. Your kind, humans. They build, they search, they hunger. One day they may find it by accident. If no one warns, galaxy dies. The stranger fell silent. The truth was heavier than he expected. These were not just scared children. They were messengers carrying knowledge no one should have. At last he muttered, So you're not just running for your lives. You're running for everyone's. The children nodded. For a long moment, only the drip of water filled the tunnel. Then the smallest child whispered, You still help us? Even now, you know? The man looked at their frightened faces. He remembered the laughter of the miners, calling him a fool. He remembered the hunters offering him life if he abandoned the kids. And he remembered his own words. I don't like watching kids die. His answer was firm. Yes, I'll help you. But it won't be easy. They'll come harder now, stronger. The eldest whispered, We know. They will not stop until we are dust. The stranger adjusted his blade and the stolen rifle. Then we don't stop either. Before he could say more, a faint humming sound filled the tunnel. The children froze. The middle one whispered, Drones. The stranger cursed under his breath. Small red lights appeared at the far end of the tunnel. Flying machines scanning, searching. The hunters were already closing in. Go, he ordered, herding the children deeper into the tunnel. They ran, footsteps splashing in shallow water. Behind them, beams of red light cut through the dark. They burst out of the tunnel into the open night. The colony lay below, glowing faintly with lamps and fires. But above, the sky was filled with ships more than before. A net tightening around them. The children gasped in terror. The eldest clutched the stranger's arm. If they catch us now, memory dies with us. The man scanned the horizon. His eyes landed on the abandoned spaceport at the far edge of the colony. Rusted ships sat forgotten, useless to most. But maybe, just maybe, one could still fly. He pointed. We head there. If we're lucky, we get off this rock. The children followed, but the eldest spoke softly, almost like a confession. Stranger, if we fail, all hope ends. Do you understand? This is not only our fight. This is yours too. The man didn't look back. His voice was hard. I understood the moment I saw you in that alley. But in his heart he knew the truth he hadn't understood at all. Not until now. They were not running from hunters. They were running from history itself. From a weapon lost in time waiting to burn again, and he, a simple drifter once called a fool, was the only one standing between silence and survival. As they neared the spaceport, red lights lit the sky behind them. The hunters had found the tunnel exit. The chase was far from over. The abandoned spaceport loomed ahead like the skeleton of a dead beast. Rusted towers leaned against the night sky, and broken ships lay scattered across cracked landing pads. The stranger led the alien children through the ruins, keeping low, scanning every shadow. The eldest child whispered, "Will any ship fly?" The stranger's voice was grim. "If we're lucky, maybe one, if not, we fight until we can't." The youngest clung to his jacket, her silver eyes wide with fear. She didn't understand all the words, but she knew danger was close. They slipped inside a hangar, dust thick in the air. A single transport ship rested there, half buried under tarps and junk. Its hull was scarred, but the frame still looked solid. The stranger ran his hand along the side, checking. "Old, but maybe still alive," he muttered. The middle child asked, "You can fly it?" The man gave a small smile. "I've flown worse." They began pulling away debris, working quickly. But then, a voice. "You should never have brought them here." The stranger froze, hand on his blade. From the shadows stepped a figure he knew. A man from the colony. A mechanic, once a drinking companion at the tavern. His name was Rin. The stranger's voice was sharp. "What are you doing here?" Rin smiled, but it was not friendly. "I followed you. Didn't take much to guess you'd run for the port. You always were predictable." The children shrank back, clutching each other. The stranger's eyes narrowed. "You brought them here?" "The hunters?" Rin's smile widened. "Of course. Do you think I'd let you ruin everything? The colony doesn't want trouble." The hunters made an offer: gold, supplies, protection. All we had to do was hand over a few lost brats. The stranger's jaw clenched. "You sold them out." "I saved us," Rin snapped. "You think anyone cares about alien kids? They're not worth our lives. You're a fool for protecting them." The eldest child whispered, "He betrayed us." The stranger stepped forward, blade glinting. "Rin, leave now and I'll forget I saw you." Rin laughed. "You don't understand. It's already too late." He raised his hand. A small device blinked red. "A beacon," the stranger cursed. "You called them here." Even as he spoke, engines roared outside. The hunters had arrived. The children gasped, pressing close to him. Fear filled the hangar as shadows stretched across the floor. The stranger turned to Rin, fury in his voice. "You doomed the whole colony. Do you know what they'll do?" Rin hesitated, his smug smile fading. "They promise," the man cut him off. "They promise nothing. They'll burn everything to ash." "You've killed us all." Rin's face drained of color. For the first time, he looked uncertain. But before he could speak again, the hangar doors exploded inward. The hunters stormed inside, armored and armed, red lights cutting through the smoke. Their leader stepped forward, mask glowing. His voice hissed like metal. "The children. Now!" The stranger raised his blade and the stolen rifle, planting his feet. "Over my body," the eldest child whispered. "They will kill him." The leader motioned and the hunters spread out, surrounding them. Behind them, Rin stood frozen, the beacon still glowing in his hand. He looked at the hunters, then at the stranger. His lips trembled. I didn't mean..." The leader turned his mask toward Rin. A single flash of light. Rin fell, a smoking hole in his chest. The children cried out. The stranger's jaw tightened. "That's what betrayal buys you," he growled. The hunters advanced. The stranger fired the rifle, red bolts lighting up the hangar. 2 hunters dropped, but more kept coming. The children screamed, ducking behind the ship. The eldest shouted, "We must leave now." The stranger backed toward the transport, firing, slashing with his blade. The leader moved faster, closing the distance, his armored hand striking like steel. The stranger staggered but did not fall. He shouted to the children, "Get inside the ship." They obeyed, scrambling up the ramp. The youngest cried, "Please don't leave us." The stranger gritted his teeth, holding the hunters back with every ounce of strength. His ribs ached, his lungs burned, but he would not give ground. The leader raised his weapon for the killing blow, when the ship's engine roared to life. The middle child had touched the controls, somehow awakening the old transport. Lights flickered, systems hummed. The stranger saw his chance. With a final swing, he drove the leader back, then dashed up the ramp. He slammed the door shut behind him just as energy bolts struck the hull. Inside, the children looked at him with wide eyes. The eldest whispered, "We trusted you, please. Don't let them take us." The stranger gripped the controls, staring out at the hunters surrounding the hangar. His voice was hard as iron. "I won't." He pulled the lever. The engines roared louder, shaking the ground. The old ship rose, fire pouring from its thrusters. Outside, the hunters fired in rage, their shots bouncing off the rising transport. The leader lifted his mask to the sky, a silent scream of fury. The stranger guided the ship upward higher and higher, breaking through the smoke. The colony shrank below, but his heart was heavy. He had seen the cost of betrayal, and he knew the hunters would never stop. Not until the secret inside the children was erased forever. The old transport ship rattled as it clawed its way into the night sky. Sparks leapt from panels and alarms wailed in the cockpit. The stranger gripped the controls hard, forcing the vessel higher. Behind him, the alien children huddled together, silver eyes wide with fear. The youngest whispered, "Ship will break." "Not if I can help it," the stranger growled, slamming a lever forward. The ship lurched, barely avoiding a beam of red light from below. Hunters' ships had taken to the air, sleek and deadly, cutting through the night like knives. The eldest child cried out, pointing. "They chase us!" The stranger's jaw clenched. "Of course they do." He pulled the transport into a sharp dive, the engines screaming in protest. Bolts of energy streaked past, shaking the hull. He twisted the controls, weaving between the hunter's blasts, but the transport was old, too old. One engine sputtered, trailing smoke. Warning lights flashed across the board. "They'll tear us apart if we stay up here," the stranger muttered. "Where will we go?" The middle child asked. His eyes scanned the horizon. In the distance lay a barren ridge of jagged rock outside the colony walls. He remembered old stories about ruins there from the first settlers who never finished their work. "Broken towers, half-buried bunkers down there," he said. He forced the ship into a dive, engines roaring as they dropped toward the ridge. The hunters followed, their weapons carving fiery trails through the sky. The transport slammed onto the ground, skidding across rock and dirt until it crashed against a ruined tower. Metal groaned, smoke rising from the engines. But the ship had survived. Barely. The stranger ripped open the hatch. "Out now!" The children scrambled into the night, coughing from smoke. The stranger grabbed his rifle and blade, scanning the skies. Red lights streaked above, the hunters were landing. The eldest tugged his sleeve. "We cannot run anymore." "They will corner us," the man nodded grimly. "Then we don't run. We fight." The ruins were sharp with shadows, jagged walls, and broken corridors. He led the children into the remains of an old bunker, pushing them behind thick stone. "Stay here," he ordered. "No matter what happens." The eldest shook his head. "They will kill you." "Maybe," the man said. "But I'll take as many of them as I can first." The middle child's voice shook. "Why risk your life?" "We are not your kind." The stranger's eyes hardened. "Because no one else would. Someone has to stand." The words hung in the air, heavy as stone. Then the sound of boots echoed outside. The hunters were coming. The stranger stepped out into the ruins, rifle raised. The first hunter appeared through the smoke. A blast from the rifle dropped him. Two more came, firing back. The stranger rolled behind a broken pillar, returning fire. The ruin lit up with red flashes. The children huddled in the bunker, listening to the storm of battle. The youngest cried softly, whispering, "He will die." But the eldest held her tight. "No. He is the only reason we still breathe." Outside, the stranger fought like a man possessed. His blade flashed in the dark, his rifle cracked with fire. A hunter lunged, but he met him with steel, cutting deep into armor. Another fired, but the stranger's shot dropped him before he could aim again. Still, there were too many. The leader stepped through the smoke, his glowing mask burning red. "You cannot win, human. Lay down your arms. Hand over the children." The stranger spat blood, lifting his blade again. "You'll have to tear them from my dead hands." The leader raised his arm. A surge of red energy burst from his weapon, striking the ground near the stranger. The blast sent him flying against a wall, pain ripping through his ribs. The children screamed from the bunker. The eldest shouted, "No!" The stranger staggered to his feet, blood dripping from his lip. His vision blurred, but he stood tall, blade still in his grip. "You don't scare me," he said through clenched teeth. The leader's mask tilted. "Then you are a true fool, and fools always die first." The hunters closed in, surrounding him. The stranger's chest heaved, every breath fire, but he raised his blade one last time. Then behind him a soft hum began to rise. The children had stepped forward, silver eyes glowing brighter than ever before. The middle child's hands trembled, pressed against the broken wall of the bunker. Strange patterns of light spread across the stone, symbols glowing like stars. The leader froze. His voice was sharp with alarm. "Stop them!" The stranger blinked, turning toward the glow. "What are you doing?" The eldest shouted back, voice breaking. "We unlock what was hidden. We call the memory alive." The ruins shook as ancient machinery deep below began to awaken, humming with forgotten power. The air filled with light, symbols racing across the ground like fire. The stranger stumbled back, shielding his eyes. The hunters shouted, firing wildly, but their shots were swallowed by the rising glow. The leader roared, charging forward, but the stranger stepped into his path, blade raised. "Not while I still breathe," he growled. The two clashed, steel and fire colliding in the heart of the ruins, while the children unlocked the secret that could change everything. The ruins shook as if the ground itself were alive. Ancient symbols blazed across the stone floor, spreading outward in lines of fire. The hunters stumbled, their weapons flickering as the strange light pulsed through the air. The stranger stood bloodied, chest heaving, blade in hand. He faced the armored leader, who glared at him through a mask that glowed red against the storm of light. "Step aside, fool," the leader hissed. "You don't understand what they are waking." The stranger spat blood, eyes steady. "Doesn't matter. You're not touching them." The leader lunged, striking with his weapon. The impact rang like thunder, throwing sparks. The stranger staggered but swung back, his blade slashing across the mask, cracking it down the side. For the first time, the leader faltered. Behind the broken mask, a single red eye burned, filled with hate. "You will die for this," he growled. "Maybe," the stranger said, breath ragged, "but not before you do." They clashed again, steel against steel, while the ruins hummed louder. Inside the bunker, the alien children stood with their hands pressed to the glowing walls. Their silver eyes blazed like twin moons. The eldest chanted in a strange tongue, his voice trembling but strong. The middle child cried out, "It answers us. The memory wakes." The youngest whimpered, clutching her brother's hand. "Too much. It burns. Hold on," the eldest urged. "Only a little longer." The light swelled, filling the ruins with a radiant glow that forced the hunters to shield their eyes. The stranger saw his chance. With a roar, he drove his blade forward, striking the leader's chest. Sparks exploded as the armor cracked. The leader staggered, but with his last strength, he slammed a gauntlet against the stranger's side, sending him crashing to the ground. Pain seared through the man's ribs. He could barely move, barely breathe. His vision blurred. The leader raised his weapon for the final strike. "This ends now." But before the blow could fall, the ground erupted with light. A pillar of energy shot skyward, tearing through the ruins, into the heavens above. The hunters screamed as their weapons failed, their armor burning under the radiant wave. They fell one by one, writhing in the glow until only silence remained. The leader turned, his single eye wide with fury. "What have you done?" The eldest child stepped forward, his voice echoing with power. "We remembered, and now the galaxy will know the truth." The leader lunged, desperate to silence them. But the stranger, broken and bleeding, forced himself to his feet. With the last of his strength, he raised his blade and drove it through the leader's chest. The masked figure froze, choking out a final hiss before collapsing in the dust. The stranger fell to his knees beside him, gasping for air. The ruins grew quiet. The light dimmed, leaving only glowing symbols etched into the stone. The hunters were gone, their threat erased by the awakening power. The children staggered forward, their silver eyes dimming as the glow faded from their bodies. The youngest collapsed, but the stranger caught her, holding her close. "You did it," he whispered. The eldest nodded weakly. "The message is free now, across the stars. No one can hide it. No one can bury it again." The stranger looked up. High above, streaks of light crossed the night sky, signals sent from the ruins into space, warnings carried to every corner of the galaxy. The children's mission was complete. He lowered his gaze back to them. "So it's over?" The eldest shook his head. "No, it begins. But we live. Because of you." The stranger let out a rough laugh that turned into a cough. "They'll call me worse than a fool for this." The middle child tilted his head. "No, they will call you hero." The man looked away, his jaw tight. He had never cared for titles, never asked for praise. But for the first time, he felt the weight of what he had done. He had saved them. And maybe more than them. The colony below was silent, unaware of how close it had come to destruction. Tomorrow they would see the ruins glowing with new fire. hear the whispers spreading across the stars, and they would remember the man who once walked alone, who risked everything for children not his own. The children leaned against him, exhausted, but alive. The youngest whispered sleepily, "Don't leave us." The stranger smiled faintly, brushing dirt from her hair. "I'm not going anywhere. Not yet." Above them, the sky still blazed with lines of light carrying the truth to the galaxy, a truth that no hunter, no mask, no betrayal could silence. The stranger sat in the ruins, broken but unbowed, surrounded by the children he had saved. And though the world had called him a fool, he knew in that moment that his foolishness had saved them all.